Hey guys, coming into another movie review for guys, and this movie we're reviewing, I originally meant to see this in theaters, but I didn't get a chance to. I've been hearing mixed things about it. I figured I'd watch it online because I didn't want to, if it was bad, I didn't want to waste money on it, and because of the mixed reviews, I just didn't want to waste money. I didn't want this to be another Jupiter Ascending. I didn't think it'd be, I'm just saying, I don't want to waste money on a movie that I don't think is going to be very good. I just don't want to do that. However, this was a movie that it was one of my most anticipated movies for the year. I was definitely looking forward to it, especially after part one. I have stuck with this series since the first one, and that is the final movie in the Hunger Games series, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. Now, part one, I know a lot of you probably weren't a fan of. I, however, was a huge fan of it and still find it to be the best in the franchise. I think it's a fantastic movie. It's a really great political thriller, and if you look at it for what it is, just as a starting point for the final story, it's a great movie. And this movie was definitely looking forward to. They left off on a very good cliffhanger in the first one. I was really hoping we'd get the necessary payoff we need in this one. And overall, how is Mockingjay Part 2? It definitely was satisfying. I will say that is a very good conclusion to the series, but it's not as good as I think it could have been. It does have a few problems, but overall, I did think it was a really great, it was a really great final chapter. However, it's not nearly as good as Mockingjay Part 1 or even Catching Fire. I think it's right below the first one. The first one is still the worst, but I definitely think this is probably the second worst. But let's get to plot Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, which is a really simple plot. Basically, this is just, it's the ending pretty much. The plot is that basically, now that PETA, if you guys did not see the first movie, PETA has been brainwashed, as we know, and Katniss basically is going on a revenge mission against President Snow for everything he's done, including the Hunger Games and just every single thing he's done. She decides to ally with every single district there is and take down President Snow. Along the way, there are some obstacles getting in her way, but this is her final chance to take him down, and that basically is the plot of the movie, and I think it's a really great plot. There's really only a few problems out of this movie, but I'll get to the really good stuff first. First of all, the acting in this movie is great. I really think everyone did a great job, and that's something that's really good in this whole franchise, that they really casted great actors here, and everyone, I think, really does a great job in this movie, and really gives her best performance. Specifically, Jennifer Lawrence. Holy shit, she just continues to amaze me more and more and more. I don't think this is going to be a girl that ever gives a bad performance. Well, there was Serena, but, you know, we don't really need to talk about that. That is on my worst list, by the way, guys. Serena is definitely going to be on my worst list. That's a different movie, though. That was before Jennifer Lawrence did all these movies. She's really come a long way, definitely, since then. You can definitely tell since the first Hunger Games. She was great in that, and this is by far her best one. What I love the most about Katniss in this movie is how restrained she really was. I mean, it really seems like she's going through a lot, but she really has to put all that aside and be a leader here, and I think she really sees that. You really see her as this leader that's willing to do whatever it takes to get this goal done, you know, whatever it takes. If she has to lose some people on the way, okay, she can't get too attached, and I think she's realizing that. She can't get too attached. She can't get too close to people. She tries to keep the people that she loves, you know, alive, but even if they die, there are parts where people do die in this movie. She can't really express how she feels because of how bad things are, and I think she definitely did a very good job in this movie. She does eventually freak out, but I think overall she did a very good job. I thought she was really great in this movie. She also is quite vulnerable. I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen with her in this movie, especially if you haven't, well, if you haven't read the book, that is, which I haven't, luckily. I haven't read the books to any of this except for the first one. I have read the first book. It's, like I told you guys, it's not, I don't really like the books of the series. I find them quite boring. But I thought she was really great in this movie. I definitely loved the uncertainty of really not knowing what was going to happen to her character. She did a very good job with that, and really, again, had that independence that I love about Katniss. She did very well, and it was great to see her play this role one final time. Definitely, she was fantastic. Josh Hutcherson, by far, gives his best performance in this series as PETA, because PETA has the most difficult conflict to deal with. He, obviously, like I said, he's been brainwashed, and a lot of this movie, he is brainwashed, but there are points where he does come back to reality. It's a very interesting conflict he has to deal with. I mean, there are points where he's at one point brainwashed, and another point he's completely himself, and it's really interesting to watch. The struggle he had to deal with was very interesting. I definitely really loved it. It was a very human conflict. I thought he did a very good job with it, and the chemistry between him and Katniss is by far the best. I know a lot of people didn't think it was believable. I will admit, it has been kind of forced, but here I really believe that these two were in love. I really believe, like, they cared about each other. They've come a long way, and they've just kind of fallen in love with each other since the Hunger Games has started. Ever since, the Hunger Games have started, ever since they've been through everything together, they've really fallen in love. You really see that here, and they did a very good job of that, and I definitely really loved it. And all the dark stuff that Pete had to do, I think Josh Hutcherson really nailed perfectly, and I really loved it. Liam Hemsworth is great, is good. He's still probably my least favorite character. You guys don't know, Gale is my least favorite character in this series. I've never, like, really loved his character. He does do a very good job here, because a lot of this movie, he is basically trying to be a badass like he was in the first one. He really is great here. I thought he did a really great job. I obviously really liked his character. There's a good conflict between him and Katniss in this movie. They kind of have different conflicts, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. I really like what they did in this movie. Woody Harrelson, as Haymitch, is usually, really like the funny one and the one that has all the funny lines. He was actually really toned down here, and I really appreciate them doing that because it really shows kind of how broken everyone is. There's no time for humor. There's no time for this wit that Haymitch usually has. Haymitch knows how dangerous the situation is and how dark things are, and he knows that he can't really add anything. There really is not a lot of hope left, and he really is just, you also see him as very vulnerable. I definitely really like that. He did a very good job for what he was in. My other thing with this movie is that a lot of the characters are very underused. Like Effie Trinket, we all know her character, barely in this movie, and it really does show. Not that I've ever, like, thought she needed more development, I just felt like she really didn't have much to do in this movie. Who was really great was Julianne Moore. She definitely did a really great job as President Coin. There was a really great twist there that I didn't see coming, and I really loved it. It really added to her character. I thought they did a very good job with it. Philip Seymour Hoffman, unfortunately, really doesn't have a lot to do. This was his final role he ever did, and it's kind of disappointing because he really doesn't have a lot to do in this movie. Yes, he has scenes to do here and there, and he does have, importance in the film. It's just, this is not really the best film to go out on, I will say. I mean, I think they could have done a bit more with him. I understand because of the circumstances, obviously because of his death, they had to do as less, they just used the footage they had with him. I understand that, but I just felt like more could have been done with his character that wasn't. But I understand, he died. There really wasn't much they could do with it, and they did handle it well, I think. I'm just saying, in terms of characters, he is definitely the most underused because, of course, of his untimely, unfortunate death, which is very sad. Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away. If you guys, of course, I'm sure you guys know that, but, he did a very good final role for what he was in. Donald Sutherland obviously kills in this movie. Something I love about Snow in this movie specifically, he's not in the movie a lot. He's really not. He's definitely more towards the end of this movie, but the presence of what Snow has done and the darkness and the impact he's had on everyone is there. You really feel like he's done a lot of shit. You really feel like all of the things that he's done, it's really impacted this entire world, and they really portrayed that very, very well. I also love, I've always said this, I love how he never really gets mad. He's very just, like, sinister and very serious and very calm. Calm villains really can be very menacing if you handle them well, and Donald Sutherland handled it very, very well. In fact, I'd love to see Donald Sutherland play another villain at some point, because he really does a great job. Sam Claflin is great, of course, as Finnick, and Jenna Malone is great in here as well. Overall, I think everyone did a really great job. The entire cast was great. I really love the ensemble as a whole, and definitely some really great scenes there. The directing here by Francis Lawrence, I was definitely very impressed with. I really loved the directing in this movie. I thought they did a very good job with it overall, and a lot of people have been complaining that the movie really didn't need to be split into two parts. I can see that, but I think it was handled well here. I think what they did well is the first half of the movie is everything before she gets the districts to come together, and I think they really ended the first part at a very good point where the directing was very good here, because the first movie, there wasn't necessarily hope, but there just was that thought that maybe something could go well. Katniss still was kind of getting over what happened. She really wasn't acting like herself, and here she's determined. She knows what she's doing. She's level-headed, and you really see in the directing. You get that dark tone. There's really no, happy moments in this movie. There is towards the end, but for most of this movie, it's a very bleak film, and I think Francis Lawrence really handled that tone very well. He really did a great job, and he's done a great job the whole series. He did Catching Fire, Mockingjay, and Mockingjay-Part 2, and he really did a great job directing the whole series. Definitely really great, and I definitely was very impressed with it. I was definitely very impressed with his directing, I have to say. The screenplay is where we run into a bit of problem, because while I think the screenplay to this movie is very good, Mockingjay Part 1 definitely still has the best screenplay of the bunch. I do think the screenplay here could have been a bit cut down, because this is taken directly from the book, and there are some things that I think they could have changed, definitely. Of course, if you guys haven't seen the trailer, we all know the scene where they have to face these alien creatures, and it feels completely out of place in this movie. There is no point where it feels like it fits into this movie. All that felt like to me was just they needed some sort of tension to keep viewers interested, so they added them in there. And I felt like it was completely unneeded. It doesn't belong in this series. It feels like something right out of like Aliens or just something from like outer space. It does not belong here. It really ruins the realistic tone that this movie has. And I was definitely, other than that though, I thought the screenplay was really good here. There are some scenes that go on a bit too long. I felt like some scenes definitely could have been cut down a bit, but I thought the screenplay was very solid. I definitely really liked it. There were a lot of scenes that got done. They wrapped up some things very, very nicely. And the way some of the characters end, I was very impressed by. A lot of them are very unexpected. I didn't expect some of the characters conclusions to end the way they did, and I definitely really liked that, I have to say. My other thing with this movie is that it's really not all that memorable. I think it's a really good end to the series, but it's not really something I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, the final movie is the best thing they've ever done. When I think back on the Hunger Games series, I'm gonna think about Catching Fire and Mockingjay Part 1. I'm not necessarily gonna think about Mockingjay Part 2. Not to say there aren't some really great things that happen in this movie, because there are some really incredible scenes in this film, some really great emotional stuff, definitely, but I just felt as a whole, it wasn't as memorable as it could have been. I will definitely agree with that. The cinematography is great in this movie. The aliens look like shit, I have to say. Definitely, they did not look good. Like I said, those alien creatures, I don't know what the hell that was about. But everything else looked great. The Hunger Games feel, just the special effects, the action shots in general, really felt that intensity in this movie. Cinematography was definitely very well handled. I definitely really loved it. I mean, just again, the costumes look great. The look of the world, I mean, is really, really great. We get a lot of dark scenes in this movie, and I think they handle them very, very well, because you really see the world as it's just dark now. I mean, there's pretty much just war going on everywhere. There's really no district where it's safe. It's kind of dangerous everywhere, and I thought they handled that very, very well in this movie. It really shows the final feel. Like, it really does feel like the final movie when you get to that, and I thought they did very well with that. I definitely really enjoyed that. The score honestly really wasn't that bad, wasn't that big. James Newton Howard does a good score to this movie. I just felt like the score in here really wasn't all that memorable. I wanted definitely more of a memorable score, and you think that it'd be the final movie. He tried to a more memorable score, really not all that memorable, and it's because they don't really use it a lot. They honestly only use the score when they need to, which I was impressed by. I like it when movies only use scores when need. You don't need to use the score in every time, but I didn't really feel like the score was that good here. And the pop songs that we all know, the really great soundtracks, there's none in this movie. If you guys know, they always release those soundtracks with a bunch of songs on them. There's none. There's really none. There's a few moments of a score, but other than that score, there's really nothing else here. I was impressed by that because it really went with the dark tone here, and I thought they handled that very, very well, I have to say. I definitely really love that. The editing, like I said, is a bit choppy at times, definitely. There are some scenes where there will be some action going on, and then it'll kind of not have as much interest. Like the alien scene just felt like it was completely out of place. It did feel like I said, it was a bit choppy at times, definitely. I would have wanted to have a little bit more going on, definitely. I felt like they could have done a bit more with it, just a little bit, tweak it down a bit. There were some scenes that definitely went on a little long. I will say, though, for the most part, all the deaths in this movie are handled very, very well. I didn't feel like there was a death here that really wasn't handled well. There was really only one death that I did not feel was handled very well at all, and it is kind of a major character, kind of not. I felt like they could have done more with that specific character, but other than that, I thought the editing was really solid here. Definitely, I was impressed by the editing. This is, I believe, it's not the longest. It's one of the longest Hunger Games one. They cut the last one down a lot, which I can understand, because that's why it works so well. I did feel you could have cut this one down a bit, but it didn't feel long to me. It went by pretty fast. I was into it most of the time, and that's because I really find the dialogue interesting. If you guys don't find the story interesting, one, why are you watching this series? Like, why? I don't understand. Two, don't see this movie. This movie is not the big action movie that it makes itself to be. And that's something I was very impressed by, because a lot of times when you split movies into two, the first half is dialogue driven and, a lot of story and a lot of just getting to that plot. Well, the second half is what I like to call an action overload, and that is not what this movie is at all. And that's something I was very impressed by. I was honestly kind of worried from the trailers that this would be just like tons of action every 15 minutes. That's not what this is. There are breaks where there's no action going on, and then there's time for action. I thought they handled that very well, definitely, because again, that's just how the world is. There's action going on, but it's not constant. It's bad, but it's not constant, and I thought they handled that well. There are times for characters to have conversations about things they need to have conversations about, and I thought they handled that very well. I definitely really like that, and the action scenes in this movie are very good. There actually aren't too many of them, I will say, guys. There aren't too many action scenes, and I like that. I like the movie. It was definitely more restrained with that. They didn't try to overuse it. They didn't overuse the action scenes. They didn't overuse the effects. As like in final movies, they like to do bigger and better, and they really didn't try to do that here. They just wrapped up things very nicely, and I really love that. And with that said, let's get into spoilers, because I do want to talk about what I liked in this movie and what I didn't like. So if you guys have not seen Hunger Games Mockingjay-Part 2, I am going to spoil it. It's just, I feel like I need to, because in order for me to have a more lengthy discussion about some of the things that happened, I definitely want to talk spoilers, so let's just get into it. First thing I want to talk about, of course, is the only death I did not really feel was handled that well was Finnick's death, because of the alien. If Finnick had not died by the alien and, almost getting eaten by the alien, I get that Katniss wanted to kill him because he was going to die anyway, but I just felt like it really wasn't handled well, especially a character like Finnick, who seemed like someone that was much more important. For him to go out that way, I thought was kind of lazy. I really did not like the way that was handled. Like I said, I really felt that part of the movie could have just been cut out altogether. I really don't know why that scene was in there. And I get that, yes, that is the scene where Katniss is supposed to motivate Peeta, and they're supposed to make up and everything. I understand that, but that overall just felt completely out of place, and I definitely did not like that. However, Prim's death, I thought, was handled perfectly. Why? Because, and I know people are saying, well, it was far away. You couldn't really see it. It's supposed to be in Katniss's point of view. We're supposed to see what Katniss sees. Katniss doesn't have time to grieve over her sister because there's just so many things going on in that scene. The scene where they dress up as, like, the Resistance, and there's people getting killed, there's people getting bombed. She doesn't have time to reflect until she gets kicked out of District 12 and is allowed to return back home. That's when she can reflect on the death of Prim. That's when. I mean, her killing President Coin, that was handled very well. I did not expect that twist to happen at all, but it really did make a lot of sense, because why would President Coin want her to make those advertisements to motivate them? Everything about President Coin has just been about the media, so it only makes sense for her to want to do the Hunger Games because it looks good for the media. She clearly is someone that's obsessed with the media and is obsessed with just tabloids and things like that. She doesn't care about the safety. She doesn't care about their safety. She cares about the media. She cares about good news. That's what President Coin cared about, and I thought that was a very good twist. I definitely like that, and the way they tried to make you feel like there was something else going on with her, I thought was very well done, and I thought they really handled that very, very well. I definitely was very impressed by that. I definitely like the way that was done. And then, of course, the killing of President Snow, he does die of natural causes, I thought was fine. Why? Because President Snow, really, if you think about it, was not as bad as President Coin. He didn't try to get, he didn't try to get Primrose killed. When he tells Katniss, I want to surrender, he is genuine about it. He really wanted to surrender because he just knew he couldn't fight her anymore. He knew he was going to die anyway. There was no point in fighting, and I thought the way that Katniss handled all that was really great. In fact, my favorite scene in this movie is probably Katniss's freak out. I think her freak out in this film is very well handled. I thought Jennifer Lawrence handled all that perfectly, and I definitely really like that. And then the ending with her and Peeta, I can understand if it's cheesy some people, but I thought it was really handled well. Katniss wants to tell this story, obviously. She'd want to tell this story to her children, so that way she doesn't repeat history. Why do we pass on stories in general? Why do we have history class? To make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Katniss does not want the Hunger Games to ever happen again, and it would only make sense for her to tell her children this story and for Peeta to tell their story, so that way their children don't try to repeat it, and the same thing doesn't try to happen again, because she clearly wants the nation to be at peace. The nation is clearly at peace at the end of this film, which I was very happy about. The sad part is they can really never return to their district just because it's not going to be the same for them anymore. They're going to remember a lot of things that they had to endure, a lot of losses they had, and they just can't return there anymore, unfortunately, which is sad, but it was kind of inevitable, honestly, for that to happen. It was inevitable that they wouldn't be able to return, and it's really sad, but that's just what they have to deal with. That's the circumstance they have to deal with, and I thought overall the way they handled that was very well done. So overall, guys, Hunger Games Mockingjay-Part 2 is a really great conclusion to the franchise. I was definitely very impressed by it. I really loved it overall. While it does suffer from some story problems, I was definitely really impressed by it. Is it the best in the series? No. Is it the best conclusion they could have given this series? No. I do feel like they could have done a bit more with some of the characters, but I am still going to give Hunger Games Mockingjay-Part 2 a 4 out of 5 or a B+. It is a very good conclusion. I was definitely very impressed by it, and it definitely felt like this franchise really did mean something. Like, it really built up to a really great finale and some really good scenes overall, and it was really great to follow this franchise. And especially because a lot of these franchises turn out really badly, this one actually turned out very well. I was very impressed by it. But overall, guys, this is my thoughts on Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie. What do you think of the franchise in general? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Just tell me, like, what's your favorite in the Hunger Games series? Were you impressed by this film? Were there things you didn't like as much? I can totally understand that. But let me know what you guys thought of this movie. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Jessica Jones, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.